I would like to welcome an official welcome to Dr. Louisa Asare and to Kathy Garza. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very cool. It's very nice to spend this time with you all. Dr. Louisa is the CEO of St. Jude's Healthcare Services, which is an opioid and alcohol use disorder clinic here in Katy, Texas. Kathy Garza is a licensed professional counselor who serves clients at Rejoice Counseling Apostolate and St. Jude's Healthcare Services. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I think that this is a very important topic. I'm interested, Dr. Louisa, how did you get into this specialized field of medicine? What attracted you to it?
So, I was originally in family medicine, and I was called to do this. This is a mission for me.
Mm.
And this was through trying to help my own brother who had an alcohol use disorder. And growing up, we all neglected him as a family because we thought this was really his own decisions that ended him this way. So coming from a family of 10 with considered successful people, we thought, no, he got himself into this, so he has to take care of it. And one day I had a dream, and the Lord spoke to me to help my brother. So when I woke up, I was like, I don't even know where he is. How am I going to help him? So, but I didn't really share this with any family member. I was just praying about it. And a month later, my dad called me from Ghana, and he said he has a wish that he really wants me to do for him. And if I do that for him, he will rest well when he dies. So I said, what is it?
Yeah, this sounds important. Yeah.
So he said, I want you to help your brother. So I said, wow, just 4 weeks ago, I had a dream about this, and now you're calling me, asking me for this favor. So I told him that if you can find him, I'll help him. So fast forward, he was able to find him, and then he wanted me to pay for his rehab costs and stuff like that. So I accepted to do that for him. And then one day I was talking to a priest, a friend of mine, my spiritual father, and we're having a conversation. He helps me pray for my family, my brother, and stuff like that. And he said, Louisa, why don't you go into addiction medicine? And then I said, no, Father, no, I've had enough growing up from my brother. So no, I don't really want to go into that. He said, you really do well in that. And so I just brushed it off. And then 2 weeks later, a friend of mine who is in addiction medicine also called me and said, I think, Louisa, you should get into addiction medicine. And I said, no way. Father told me 2 weeks ago to get into addiction medicine, and now you are saying that. So I said, okay, I need to pray about this.
Yeah.
And she said, you'll be able to impact more lives than you are doing now. And the blessing will be very rewarding. And I said, okay, if you say so, I'm going to pray about it. And that's how I got myself into the training and ended up in this specialty.
Wow, that is a beautiful story. Thank you for opening up and sharing with us. Yeah. And so now what is work done at St. Jude's? What does it consist of? What is it like?
So at St. Jude's, we are a Suboxone clinic, medication-assisted treatment for opioid use disorder and also treatment for alcohol use.
Okay.
And we also have Miss Kathy doing the psychotherapy for us. So that is what we do at St. Jude's.
Okay. So people go, how often do people go there? Like if somebody goes there, do they go and stay there or do they go on a daily basis or like a weekly for appointments for
So
medication?
it's outpatient. So
Okay.
we start with weekly visits, and when the patient is progressing and doing well, we kind of extend it like that.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. And so, Kathy, what's your role with St. Jude's Healthcare Services?
Well, since I'm a licensed professional counselor, I offer counseling, of course, and supportive check-ins with clients. I assign them homework to connect the skills that we practiced in sessions, so they'll have something to do between sessions.
Sounds really important. Um, how important would you say that counseling is to overcoming dependence and addiction?
Well, I mean, I'm a bit biased, but I would say counseling is an integral part to
I'm a
overcoming
bit
dependence
biased
and
too, but
addiction. Yeah, I'm sure. We all are. I mean, because, it offers the individual that safe space, right, for self-exploration and to come to terms like with difficult emotions they've experienced and difficult kind of face difficult questions they have. Also to learn about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a huge theme that comes up. I can't think of a time that it hasn't. Um, and so,
wow.
especially self-forgiveness. Yeah, that's a hard thing. And, with that, like to learn how to overcome shame and use self-compassion for that. To learn those self-compassion techniques to overcome the shame that they're living with. And to practice new ways of dealing with distressing emotions and distressing situations that they face. And also a big thing is, in counseling, they learn to set healthy boundaries. A lot of times they don't know. When I say, let's talk about boundaries, they're like, what are those? So that's always a fun conversation. So all of this, is ultimately to help them completely heal.
Yeah, it sounds very important. It sounds very enriching.
Yeah,
Well,
Dr.
let's
Louisa, did you want to add anything to that?
I think you got it.
Okay, thanks.
awesome. So I would assume that everybody here watching understands what opioid and alcohol use disorder is, but I think it would be helpful to define it. Dr. Lisa, would you mind giving us an overview of what are we talking about?
So, when we talk about addiction, addiction is a disease that according to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, they define it as a treatable chronic disease involving complex interactions among brain circuits, genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experiences. People with addiction use substances or engage in behaviors that becomes compulsive and often continue despite harmful consequences.
Mhm.
When we talk about substance use disorders, such as opioid and alcohol use, it's characterized by the loss of control of substance use, risky use, and impaired social functioning, tolerance, and withdrawals. Some of the opioid drugs that can be abused um, are morphine, codeine, heroin, fentanyl, tramadol, oxycodone, hydrocodone, and methadone. And also, normally we overlook some of the other addictive behaviors that are there, like sex, pornography, screen addiction, shopping addiction, which we also need to pay attention to those things.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that we don't have to look too far. Almost everyone, I think everyone, I don't know, maybe I'm generalizing, but I think almost everyone knows someone or has a family member who struggles with some sort of addiction. This is an epidemic. It is something that affects everyone, you know.
Okay.
What might be some examples of how these disorders affect individuals and families?
I wanted to add to what you said. Like
Sure, yeah.
with addiction, it's really like a disease we all need to really understand because 21 million people in the United States have this disease.
Mm.
And out of that, 15 million suffer from alcohol use disorder. So, and 3 million out of that suffer from the opioid use disorder. So if you look at it, 21 million people, that's a whole country. We can make a country out of that. So it's really, really important. And it's the number one cause of injury-related death in our country right now, more than car accidents and gun violence, according to the National Safety Council. In 2015, 50,000 people died of overdose. And in 2020 alone, 94,000 people died of overdose. So as we can see, think about that for a moment. It's really very important. Thank you.
Yes. And it's about your question of, how the disorder affects individuals and families. I mean, that's, always unique to the individual and the family, obviously. But, some people come to the clinic on their own because they realize that sometimes they've hit rock bottom, and they heard about it and they think, well, maybe that's what I need. I've tried before. I tried cold turkey, it didn't work. And then they hear about this medication assisted, and they feel like, maybe this is what I need, or maybe someone's talked to them about it. A lot of times their PCP has talked to them about it, which is great. Like I said, some people have lost everything and everyone that was important to them, and others come by court order, and others, have had families who care about them and they hold interventions, or families who give them ultimatums. Some have had law enforcement, dealings with law enforcement. Others have had CPS involvement because maybe their children spoke to someone at their school, or another parent picked up on it. So it's unique to the individual, but it impacts families, in a heavy way. I'm sure Dr. Louisa has heard a lot of different stories. It's definitely unique to the individual. I mean, I've heard everything from what I mentioned to near-death experiences and like diabolical encounters and things like that. But it's for everyone, it's different. Dr. Louisa, did you
Doc-
want to add any to that one?
Yes. So when we talk about like substance use disorder, there's a criteria that we use to actually diagnose people with. And what that looks like is people that they are unable to fulfill responsibilities. That's one.
Mhm.
Um, they use in hazardous situation, even though they know the risk. They have social and interpersonal problems related to related to the drug use. Using large amounts or longer than intended. They are unable to cut down on use. And also, there's increased times that they spend in obtaining and using these drugs, and also to recover from it.
Mhm.
And there's like ongoing use despite harms. There's cravings. That's one of the criteria that we look out for. And there's tolerance and withdrawals. But with the tolerance and withdrawals, if it's prescribed by a medical professional, that doesn't really count. But those are the things that we look out for. And really, if you look at it, it's mostly based on 9 out of the 11 is based on behavior. So those are the criteria that we look for in diagnosis of addiction.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really clear. And I think if we know somebody who has a problem with addiction, we can kind of just think like down the checklist, right? Oh, yeah, yeah. Um, well, let's move into some practical tools for navigating the problem. Um, what would you recommend to people who are seeking help?
I mean, what I recommend is like, I mean, that they get the help, but they stay connected to their support system, and
Mhm.
that's their counselor, their doctor, their, you know, friends and family who really have their best interests at heart. And also, I always say complete your homework exercises. And I also recommend attending a 12-step program in addition to individual counseling. And here's why. It's like that constant accountability from someone, that you're assigned a mentor or a sponsor, and this person's been through it. It's one thing to come see Dr. Louisa and me, and they sometimes even ask me straight out, have you ever been addicted? And I mean, I have to honestly answer no. And so this person in the 12-step program has been, and they've overcome that. And so they're credible to them. And so I think that's really helpful. And I wanted to, you know, put a put a plug in for the 12-step programs because they do good work, especially in holding the individual accountable and checking in with them on the daily. So, I mean, as Dr. Louisa talked about the cravings, we practice something in session, which is called urge surfing. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. And clients are asked to practice that for homework and journal it, and tell me about what happened when we have session again. We have a next visit. And so, we talk a lot about being all in. You can't just have one foot in the door. You have to be all in if you're ready, for full recovery. Um,
Mhm.
and so that's a big thing. And I'll talk more about that later. But for families, I really encourage families to attend Al-Anon or a similar program. We offer, resources like the government websites, like the SAMHSA and DEA and others. But and self care is really important for families.
Mhm.
They need to look out for themselves as well and make sure they're not doing it all for the person, because there's dignity, right? Like there's dignity in work, there's dignity in like this victory I got. Not that my family did it for me, not that my spouse did it for me, but I worked hard and I went to my appointments and I checked in and I did everything I could. And this is mine. I did something good, because they have like a history of doing a lot of things that weren't so good. They need to own this. This is for them. So I would say for families, we kind of recommend like hold them accountable, keep your boundaries, stay consistent with your support and encouragement, but let them do the hard work so that they can feel that dignity and celebrate when they do have these victories.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really interesting because it sounds like sometimes family members' concern for the person or anxieties about a relapse can cause them to intervene and to help. And
yeah,
yet, those helpful behaviors undermine the confidence and the sense of accomplishment of the person who's becoming recovering, right?
right. Very well
Interesting.
said. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Dr. Louisa, did you want to say some more on that one?
Yeah, just to add to what you're saying, community is really very important on the path to sobriety. Um, Alcohol Anonymous participation is a great thing for both the family and the patient.
Mhm.
There's also self-management and recovery training. They empower individuals to develop the skills needed to maintain their sobriety. There's also resources like Women for Sobriety, which helps women in recovery to be able to alter the negative thoughts and kind of establish a healthier lifestyle. And then me coming from the medical side, I will recommend medication-assisted treatments like Suboxone. Um, Really, it's very important. Like you guys wanted to be biased about counseling, I'm going to also be biased about medication-assisted treatment because it's if you think about addiction, um, at some point the body down-regulates its dopamine production. So people really like with a dopamine of 10 when they wake up, nanograms per deciliter, they can't even get up to do anything. But these medication-assisted treatments um, will, will be able to raise their dopamine to where it can be able to stabilize the cravings that they have, with their brains telling them all day, I need a drug, I need a drug, which is literally saying, I need dopamine, I need dopamine. So if we don't stabilize the brain that way, you don't curb the cravings, then they won't even have the focus to be able to listen to what you're saying. So that is very, very important to have a medication-assisted treatment like Suboxone, methadone, something to be able to stabilize them and help them on the road to rehabilitation.
Well, it sounds a little similar to when someone takes a medication for a depression. Like if they're so depressed, they can't get out of bed, they can't do anything. Well, then if they make it to the counseling session and you give them some homework or some tools to use, they probably won't have the energy or the drive or the motivation to use those tools. But if they're taking medication and it allows them to feel a little bit better, then they're able to put the tools in practice. So then that like builds. So yeah, it sounds very similar.
Mhm. Yes.
Uh-huh. But probably even more scientifically based because of the way that the substances interact in the brain to create the
Mhm.
deficit of dopamine, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, like on a normal day, the baseline of an average person is like 50 nanograms per deciliter. When somebody is taking like tobacco, a substance like tobacco, it raises it to like 450. Heroin raises it from 50 to 975. Methamphetamine, that is even worse, 1,100. So think about that. Sex increases it to 125. So when you get to 10, those are the people that have, like dopamine gives us the motivation to be able to get out of bed and do something. So if you are like below 10, you can't even get up to do anything. And when they don't have the drug to be still boosting them with the dopamine, we need something that will be able to raise their dopamine, which is regulated to kind of help them to be able to do what they have to do.
Mhm. Well, so it sounds like it because they have had such a spike of dopamine, they're like up to a thousand if they're doing meth, then they need something to raise it at least a good portion so that they can overcome the craving. Otherwise, the craving is so great they and their lack of like even being able to function is so low. And then that allows them to work on themselves and say no to the craving.
Yeah, so when
Yeah.
people have that high constant raising of the dopamine, what the brain does is it downregulates the number of the dopamine receptors.
Okay.
So that reduces the natural dopamine release. So overall, the person, they can't feel pleasure. They
Mm-mm.
become so dependent on the drug to increase the dopamine for them to really feel any kind of pleasure. So that's where we replace, yes. So the constant chronic raising of it shuts the body's own natural dopamine down. And so you need something so that slowly it can raise the dopamine to where the body will start producing again.
Wow, I could go down this rabbit hole like longer, but for the sake of time, let's see. What about people who say that maybe there's a fear of becoming addicted to the replacement substance, the methadone or the Suboxone or whatever they're taking?
Yeah, so really MAT, like I always say, it's not really the long, it's only temporary. It's not a long-term solution
Mm.
because Suboxone, like any other opioid, can raise the dopamine levels and can be addictive and abused like other substances.
Mm.
Um, because but it acts as a bridge, a bridge to help replace whatever drug of choice that they were using
Yeah.
before. And then with that, we can add the other transformative mental and psychological, psychosocial, and spiritual works to it to actually be successful.
Okay. So like when you evaluate somebody for taking one of these substances as a replacement, it sounds like you're also maybe evaluating their motivation, their like desire to actually recover or not, and like are they wanting this to actually so they can work on themselves, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Um, well, from a spiritual perspective, how does how does our faith see addictions and this topic? Either one of you.
I would say
Well,
overcoming addiction is really a spiritual battle. And in addition to everything that we've discussed, behavior, I think we need to replace that pleasure with a supernatural power.
Mm.
And to me, in our Catholic or Christian perspective, that really requires the power of our Lord Jesus Christ to resist that pleasure and temptations of this world and replace it with the peace, the love, the joy, kindness, faithfulness, and gentleness of our Lord Jesus Christ.
yes, and I've found that clients are really receptive to that. Um, and, I offer to start sessions in prayer, and no one's ever said no. They realize the need for Jesus, need for God in their lives, and we finish with a blessing to send them out after session. Something I teach clients also is a Catholic practice or principle called avoiding the near occasion of sin, and this involves looking at like who you were around when you were abusing drugs, and like when did you do it? What time of day did you do it? So you can like replace that behavior with another activity, and where did you typically abuse it? Like where were you? Don't go there anymore. I wish it were that easy though. And what are your triggers and the temptations? How can we think about removing those? We'd like kind of brainstorm together and pray about it. And it goes back to that, being all in. It means you've got to be willing to say, that's it, I'm done, and make major life changes if you can. And but avoiding the near occasion of sin is one of those principles that they are not so aware of usually, and but they really get it, like once it's explained to them, like this makes sense, like I need to change my environment, that's the only way this is going to work, like, right. And drawing them, asking the right questions, they come to it on their own. They see it, they see that it's, yeah, I need to make some major life changes. Like we talk about, if you can you move? Can you move to a different area? Is there a relative you could move in with who, doesn't live around these people? Can you change jobs? Because sometimes it's coworkers. Um, you can block people from your phone and social media. And Can you get involved in your church? Can you volunteer somewhere? Was there something else you can do? And I also encourage them to be really honest with their family members. If they have put them in danger in any way too,
Hmm.
that's important too. Like, if there's a dealer there who's looking for them, that's really important, that they don't just like, oh yeah, well, I'm moving, and then their families, get knocks on the door, or something else.
Hmm.
Um, but another thing is, there's something that Saint Benedict of Nursia came up with for his monks. It's called a rule of life. And I talk to clients about this, about how when we feel like our lives are in chaos and we need order, orderliness is a fruit of the spirit. And we talk about that, and how, centering on prayer and work and obedience, that kind of stuff brings order to our lives. And it can be, little things, like organizing, making your bed, stuff like that. It can be big things like creating like a really strict routine, at least temporarily, where you're praying, if you can practice the sacraments, you're going to adoration, and adoring the Blessed Sacrament. You're receiving communion if you can. You're going to the Sacrament of Reconciliation. Clients are usually really open to those ideas too, especially the rule of life. It sounds like a really rigid thing to talk to people about, but they're like, no, that's what I need right now. I'm like, yeah, and it doesn't have to be forever, but it's like creating any other kind of habit. It sticks. Like when you get up in the morning, you read your mass readings, you listen to a daily reflection, you pray your rosary, you go and exercise, you come back and have your breakfast. Like, you get that routine, and and you feel healthy, you feel confident. So that's something else that I talk to clients about. Those are two major things: the avoid the near occasion of sin, and the rule of life.
Wow, those are great Catholic resources. You know what, your comment about having routine and a plan, Kathy, reminded me of I I knew of some people who were in inpatient treatment, and once they had the privilege of going out on the weekends, they were asked by the leader of their division, or the area they were in, to make a plan for the whole weekend. That is to say, like, what were they going to do Friday night? What were they going to do Saturday at, morning, afternoon, and evening? And what were they
Mm-hmm.
going to do on Sunday? And they had to plan out their weekend, and stick to their plan,
It's good.
because one of the triggers for falling back into their addictions was boredom. And I don't know that, obviously we know that other kinds of feelings might throw us into those behaviors, but boredom seems like it's a big one, and having that kind of a plan is
Yeah, it's
important.
like a safety net. Yeah,
Yeah.
your routine can be your safety net to keep you, on track.
Yeah.
True.
Well, I just noticed the time, so we're going to move into questions now. If anyone in our audience has a question, you may ask either in the chat or by turning on your video and asking. I know that we had a question submitted in our registration about OCD, false memory, and schizophrenia. Um, I actually didn't even understand what the question meant, so if either of you would like to address what they were talking about, please go for it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's a frightening thing for an individual to have false memories, and the thing is that they really believe them to be true, and that they did something horrible, or inhumane. Even, it could be committed a crime. And so what we treat it like, we treat OCD. It's not. It's they're just always looking for reassurance that they didn't do it, or they can't live with the uncertainty. And so what we do is we build a tolerance to that uncertainty. And so, but they have this feeling like I have gaps in my memory. That means I did something, and they
Oh, yeah.
really believe they did it.
Mhm.
And we talk about, well, we all have gaps in our memory. That doesn't necessarily mean we did something. And so you just kind of build that up, and it's a scary thing for people, and it can come in different areas of their lives, and so I don't know if the person who wrote the question would like to say anything more about it, but it's the what you want to teach people is mindfulness, and it's okay to have some uncertainty. The ultimate goal is to tolerate it and accept the uncertainty. You want them to connect with others. The mindfulness part is that you're noticing your thoughts, but you're not like reacting. You're just like, okay, I had a thought, and you're not like, oh no, and you feel compelled to go ask somebody if it's a bad thought or to reassure you, and connecting with others, and keeping a journal of the thoughts and the compulsions is good to share with your therapist or counselor, and just telling yourself, like, putting it out there. Memory gaps are normal. It doesn't mean I'm bad. It doesn't mean I've done anything wrong. But it's they carry this level of shame. So I also, the self compassion. I always say self compassion is the antidote. It's to shame. So if that didn't answer your question, please let me know.
No. Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, whoever asked it will see this presentation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, when a person is in addiction, are they far away from the Lord? Are they separated from God if they're in an altered state of mind?
Well, you want to take that one, Dr. Louise? I feel like this. Whatever we put, you know, if we put something above God, it's an idol, right? And
Mm.
so, I mean, are we far away from the Lord? The Lord is always looking to redeem us. He loves us. And that is the hardest thing to convince someone of, is God's love for them. And but that's where we need to get our clients. We need to get them there to understand that God is love, and He loves you, and He wants you whole. And He's always looking to redeem, and He knows our hearts, and He sees you. He sees you working. He sees you striving to get closer to Him. And once again, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I
Okay.
go ahead, Dr. Louisa, go ahead.
I wouldn't really say they are far from the Lord. I feel like the Lord is always close to each and every one of us because we all have our struggles, and He's calling us every day because there's an experience that someone shared with me. He's a pastor right now, and at the point of overdose, like he had a voice that told him twice he tried overdose, and the last one he said there will not be a next time. He knew it was the voice of the Lord. So
Wow.
the Lord is really, and not only when he shared that experience with me, it's like, Louisa, not only was I, he gained sobriety that instant. From that day, he didn't even need any drugs. He never went to the drugs ever again. He was healed completely. So the Lord is calling all of us, no matter what our burdens are, no matter what it is, our struggles, He's still close to us, and He's calling us every day. we all need to just come together as a family and help each other just gain salvation. That's what I would say.
Yes.
The thought that came to my mind also, especially for family members who worry about maybe a loved one who's addicted, is that God alone knows the depth of the struggle of that person, the level of will that the person actually has to be able to commit a sin or not, right? The level of awareness of the offense, right? And whether they're actually choosing or not choosing, like from outside, and even that same person might not be a good judge as to how much they actually can affect that situation. And so I think you guys are I mean, you're right. Like we entrust that person to God's mercy and we continue to pray for them and just trust God wants us all to be close to him, right? So a question, Dr. Louisa, someone asked how to taper off drugs versus medication safely to avoid withdrawals and cope. How would you address that?
So with I mean, when I saw that question, I was like, drugs. So did they mean abuse drugs or street drugs? I guess.
Yeah.
So at St. Jude's, what we do is we have a protocol that is we microdose the Suboxone over a period of time. So with other protocols, it requires the person to kind of be in withdrawals before they even start giving them the Suboxone. But I don't do that. So they continue to take whatever that they are taking, and we taper we kind of adjust the Suboxone over time. And in a period of 5 days, they are able to stop the drugs completely without just minimum withdrawals or no withdrawals at all. And the Suboxone continue with the Suboxone alone.
Oh,
So
wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. So it sounds like you definitely something that the person wants to do is make sure they have a medical supervision if they're going to be trying to do this.
exactly,
Right.
to
Yeah.
avoid the withdrawals, which is a challenge that makes people go back again and again. So,
Mm.
and these drugs are, they are 75% effective. So if we talk about other chronic diseases like hypertension, these medications are like maybe 40, if we say somebody is really going to get better, 45 to 50%. But these drugs are like 75% effective. So there's help out there. People need to seek it and help them to bridge and take care of, stabilize those cravings to help us a smooth transition.
That's really interesting. So it sounds, with the story that you shared about the pastor who, like, miraculously, he heard God say, there won't be a next time.
Mhm.
Um, which could either mean like next time if you do this, you're dead, or it
You're
could
dead.
mean like you're gonna have the strength that you won't do this again, right? Either one, right?
No, he was dying. He felt like,
Okay,
from
he's
his
like, I'm
experience,
dead if
he
I do
felt
this
like
again.
his brain was exploding.
Oh
So
my
he was at the point of overdose. So he
God.
knew that what the next time meant, that
Okay,
he won't.
okay. Um, but it sounds like the normal way for people to heal is through therapy and medication and having a team, right? Like there are obviously miracles, but at the same time, God doesn't just say like I'm just going to heal everybody, right? For some reason, he chooses to use humans to help other humans, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we're at the end of our time. Is there something that you guys would like to leave as a closing thought for our guests? Mhm. We just got another question from somebody. Maybe what we can do is have you guys respond to her privately in an email if you wouldn't mind, because I don't know that we have time to address the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
So, yeah, what I want to leave with everybody today, if you don't take anything from here, just see substance use disorder as a chronic illness and that there's treatment. That is really, really effective. And as a society, we have to be able to stop the stigma and discrimination, and take it that people with a substance use disorder are really sick. And we just have to find a way of putting in systems in place to help them rather than just throwing them in jail without any help. That's what I want to leave with everybody.
Yeah, I agree. We need to realize that, there are obstacles to access, this kind of help, and that we need to destigmatize getting help. That it's and encourage people, be encouraging to people who are trying to get help.
Well, thank you both. Thank you both for your time, for your wisdom, for your encouragement. We will continue to pray for your ministry and for those who are called to join you and to find health through this wonderful St. Jude's Healthcare Services.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. So, if anyone would like to contact Dr. Lisa or Kathy, please note we have placed their contact information in the chat. Also, if you wouldn't mind giving us a good review on Yelp, we'd appreciate it. And a recording of the session will be sent out within a week or two, given that it's Thanksgiving, so that we can pass this information on to others. Thank you all for joining us.